Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching. The vote is final. The Arch-Chancellor's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. At the heart of the Galactic Council's Magna Chamber, Sovandrek turned a ring between his clawed fingers, not idly, but with ritual precision, like a sentence being sealed. His obsidian crest flared with triumph. Let it be recorded that the species known as Homo sapiens are hereby reclassified. Servile. A low hum pulsed through the chamber. Dozens of hovering translator nodes clicked into place, broadcasting the sentence across hundreds of dialects in near-perfect sync. Then came the light, sweeping golden lines igniting across the chamber ceiling, cascading into script that confirmed what everyone already knew: Earth had been stripped of its sovereignty. In Sector 2, a delegate from the Vicari Alliance let out a chirp of amusement. On the elevated arc of the Jaquel block, dignitaries clicked their mandibles in rhythmic approval. Only a handful of voices remained silent, their posture tense and unmoving. Objection, came a deep growl. All movement ceased. Primarch Vektal of the Korgathi stood tall at his station. His massive frame, draped in ceremonial bone armor, cast a long shadow under the council dome's pale light. Twin eyes, glimmering with cold fury, locked onto the Arch-Chancellor across the chamber. "This decision is a mistake," Vektal rumbled. "You do not know humans as we do. They observe, they adapt, and when they act, it's after the rest of you have already lost." A ripple passed through the seats, unease, tightly suppressed, twitching in antennae and flicking through translucent fins. But no one echoed the warning. Sovandrek's expression twisted into amusement. The Chancellor extended both arms as if embracing the silence. "Is that a threat, Primarch? Or a nostalgic hallucination of a war you failed to win 2 centuries ago?" A few scattered chuckles echoed from allied factions. The Nemari clacked their crystal digits. The Vorshalan stared blankly through their gas helmets, unmoved. "We did not lose," Vektal said with quiet weight. "We survived." The statement hung heavy. Several minor delegates shifted uncomfortably. Across the room, Eos Mar of the Corrine delegation cast a sidelong glance toward his superior, a glance that went unacknowledged. "No more delays," Sovandrek snapped, his voice now amplified by the chamber's integrated symphony of resonators. "We are not here to indulge fantasies of retribution from a defeated predator caste. We are here to bring stability to a species too stubborn to integrate." With measured force, he raised the Chancellor's seal, an iridium loop of living bioglass embedded with the voting core, and pressed it into the recess beside his podium. A hum surged through the chamber. Above them, the ceiling projections surged into motion. A crown of golden filaments spun outward across the dome, each line of alien script cascading like a judgment etched in flame. Effective immediately. Earth is designated Class S3, servile. Autonomous governance is suspended. Scientific development is frozen. Interstellar transmission protocols are revoked. Resource yields are to be regulated. Sovereignty nullified. Rows of delegates rose to their feet, applauding with synchronized motions as ritual horns sounded from recessed vaults. On the gallery walls, ceremonial banners unfurled, each bearing the sigils of council unity, glowing in sickly, celebratory gold. Yet not everyone stood. In the lowest tier, the merchant delegates of the Luthari Enclave, cloaked in sensor-dampening robes, remained seated, their silver masks unmoving. Behind them, the delegate pair from the Kiranos Compact exchanged a single, anxious glance. And in the uppermost gallery, the eldest of the Corrine observers slowly closed his eyes. On the main dais, Arch-Chancellor Sovandrek performed the final part of the ritual. Lifting his arms wide, he let the council seal hover above him, then clicked his talons in a precise triple beat pattern. A cascade of hard light surrounded him, declaring the motion irrevocably past. The visual spectacle was overwhelming, designed to dazzle and dominate. Applause thundered again, amplified through acoustic dampeners so that the chamber's reverb formed a uniform, majestic echo. Still seated, Vektal did not blink, nor did he rise. His second, Gormek, a younger Korgathi with vibrant orange markings, leaned toward him. "They chose blindness," he muttered. "Again." "They chose arrogance," Vektal corrected. "And arrogance always thinks it's safe, until it's not. And when it realizes it isn't, it's already too late." Across the chamber, Zovandrek's grin widened. He rotated the ring on his finger once more, slow and deliberate, savoring the moment. Unseen to nearly all, far above the tiers of the magna chamber, a small hatch in the dome's service duct hissed open. Barely larger than a man's fist, the sealed communications capsule ejected into orbit, silent, unnoticed. It moved fast, cutting clean across the station's rotation arc, silent, untraceable, programmed for one thing only: deliver the signal. No beacon, no return path, just purpose. And Mars was waiting. Beneath the surface of the red planet, inside a chamber with no markings, no windows, and no known coordinates, the signal arrived. A dim console blinked once in acknowledgement. Men stood around it, silent, precise, coordinated. No banners, no emblems, just cold steel and white light. They had waited 12 years for this moment. Not a breath wasted, not a line of code unmeasured. The silence was not hesitation, it was readiness. In the center of the chamber, a figure stepped forward. Broad shoulders, dark uniform, calm eyes that had seen too much. Commander Victor Rains lowered his hand from the console, his voice calm, stripped of ceremony. Authorized. It had begun. The capsule had barely completed its descent when the command center stirred. Not with alarms, but with the quiet precision of something engineered to wait. For years. And now, awakened not by surprise, but by inevitability. Inside the subterranean complex beneath the Valles Marineris fault line, the men of Section 9 moved with silence that felt rehearsed. No names on their uniforms, no insignias on their walls. Just reinforced concrete, low-frequency hums, and lightless corridors where every console glowed only when touched. Commander Victor Rains didn't turn to acknowledge the capsule's signal. He had been watching the encrypted feed before it even arrived. The vote was merely a trigger, ceremonial, unnecessary. The real sentence had been passed years ago. The moment Zovandrek sealed the resolution, the countdown ended. Victor stood at the central platform of the command nexus, surrounded by tiers of sunken workstations. Around him, his operators wore the same gray-black uniforms, each tailored identically, each with a single purpose. He tapped the main console once. A soft chime, dull and cold, signaled the initialization of a sequence buried 12 years deep. "Janus," he said. The word alone carried the weight of everything to come. Nothing flashed. No alarms rang. No lights pulsed. On the surface, the command center remained unchanged, silent, impersonal. But deep within galactic infrastructure, everything shifted. Across the star map suspended before Victor, thousands of points began to flicker. A galaxy of signals, turning into shadows. Behind him, Agent Lucas Granger monitored the flow of command packets leaving Mars. Signal dispersion confirmed, ghost nodes online, target systems not reacting. "Status of null ping arrays?" Rains asked without looking back. Granger's fingers glided over a flat, textureless interface. "Holding. Interceptors bypassed. All diagnostics read nominal from their end." "Good." Rains didn't blink. He tapped a second panel. In orbit over Vernac 3, a cargo buoy retasked itself mid-transit. It pinged an idle satellite, registered under the Karshal Trade Commission, and initiated a firmware update. The firmware rewrote its orbital telemetry and began a false beacon broadcast. On the other side of the system, a second node responded in kind. No one noticed. 12 years earlier, Rains had stood alone on the observation platform of a derelict refinery above Sigma Andere. The refinery, gutted by war and stripped by scavengers, held no value. But the communication relay built into its spine? That was something else. He remembered the negotiations with Administrator Baljerak, a Threxian bureaucrat whose skin folded like layered metal and whose species prized protocol over profit. "We merely need a proximity license," Rains had said. "In exchange, Earth will route Threxian merchant traffic through safe lanes during your upcoming dry season." The Threxians had agreed. They always did when water was involved. Now, 12 years later, Baljerak's station lit up with error signals that no one aboard could read. It would take another 20 minutes for the crew to realize their stabilizers were recalibrating based on a ghosted system authority they didn't recognize. A red circle pulsed quietly over the Andara sector on Rains's map. One down. "Commerce Ring Beta 7 is isolating," said Lieutenant Miguel Harrow from the analytics tier. "They've lost sync with central exchange routers. No error reports transmitted." "Tag and monitor," Victor replied. Flashback. In a closed negotiation room on Eric's Minor, Rains sat across from Nivlek of the Darun. 6 eyes, armored spine, voice like rust over stone. The Darun were poor but strategically located, and their orbital comm relays had been marked for years. "Humans want nothing in return but exclusive access to your service conduits," Rains had said. "In exchange, we'll provide you with the atmospheric modulators you've requested." Nivlek blinked slowly. "And why would you give us these gifts?" Rains had leaned forward, voice flat. "Because no one else will. And because someday your conduits will decide who can speak to whom, and who cannot." Nivlek had signed. 3 years later, Section 9 used those same conduits to inject command loops into council banking relays. Today, those loops silenced entire economic subsectors without tripping a single alarm. On the central display, red clusters multiplied. "Confirming full override of intersystem logistics queues in the Coran Triad," said Granger. "Council routing AI are stuck in parity recursion. They won't reroute in time." Victor crossed the floor slowly, the room's faint vibrations barely perceptible underfoot. No one saluted him. Section 9 didn't salute. They executed. A second map unfolded alongside the star map. A digital web of network arteries, power cores, transit nodes, and signal relays. Entire stretches blinked into red, cascading one after another. Not a single alert showed in the Council's Overwatch monitors. Their systems still thought everything was fine. He tapped again. Near the Corwood trade route of the Reshkai Concorde, 5 relay satellites pivoted. Their cores reoriented by just under 3 degrees. Enough to reroute civilian navigation around dead zones into nowhere. Pilots wouldn't notice until too late. 12 years ago, he had visited a diplomatic envoy ship from the Arval Syndicate, posing as an economic advisor. He shared coffee with Minister Ulrin Moore, a 4-armed reptilian whose speech slurred during his 3rd glass of Earth whiskey. "We'll provide redundancy tech," Victor had offered. "In exchange, allow us to install atmospheric redundancy filters on your long-range beacons." "Backup systems? For free?" Ulrin had laughed. "You humans do know how to make friends." "Not friends," Victor had said. "Partners." Ulrin had passed out before asking what the filters actually did. Now, Arvalian beacons looped false telemetry to council ships across 12 sectors. Patrols were being routed in circles, unable to find each other. "Report," Victor said. Granger responded instantly. "Command hijacks in 61 of 63 primary nodes complete. Subnet isolation on track. They're still blind." Behind them, the operators worked in perfect rhythm. Each failure registered was tagged, confirmed, logged. No chatter, no deviation. The lights dimmed automatically as the final stage initiated. On the central star map, dozens of green points blinked once, then vanished. Station after station, route after route. One blink, gone. Another, gone. Like stars being snuffed out, one by one. On Victor's command board, a small line of text appeared. Operation Janus, Stage 1, complete. Rains turned to the final display, an angular rendering of the magna chamber of the Council itself. Schematics of ventilation shafts, service routes, access panels, all synchronized. Status of internal nodes? Any anomaly? Anything at all? He asked, eyes narrowing. Lieutenant Harrow didn't look up. Dormant but listening. No movement detected. Agents report all positions held. Victor nodded once. His gaze fell to the star map, now a network of darkened arteries. Behind him, operators began marking the failures one by one in deep crimson. Mark them. One by one, each screen lit with a red sigil. And still, the galaxy spun. Blind. Unaware it was no longer in control. Across the galaxy, no one had noticed. Yet. The lights dimmed on Station Aetheris, just as First Mediator Selvek finished his transmission to Council Core Net. A minor glitch, perhaps, until the entire diplomatic floor dropped into emergency mode. One by one, the hard light panels blinked out. Power systems recycled. Translator nodes died mid-conversation. Within 90 seconds, the station's central AI entered lockdown. No alerts were triggered. Selvek stood in the command gallery, mandibles twitching, as subordinates scrambled. The station's outer arms rotated into inertial alignment, but refused to respond to guidance commands. Hangar bays froze. Pressure readings held, but the access hatches wouldn't cycle. Internal doors locked. Subspace comms fell into recursive loops. Aetheris had vanished from the network, and the galaxy had no idea why. 3 decks below, a Kravari aide slammed a control panel with the flat of his palm. The interface gave no acknowledgement. The lights above him pulsed red, then deadened. "We're offline," muttered Technician Rolar Dan, a human liaison embedded on the station. His voice was calm. Too calm. "How?" Selvek barked from above, descending the curved platform like a blade. "How can an entire diplomatic core station be cut off?" Dan didn't answer. His fingers moved across a manual relay board, but he wasn't trying to fix it. He was watching it fail, quietly, perfectly. Within 5 minutes, 5 more diplomatic stations followed. Station Primaxis in the Tolzene Spiral, frozen mid-session. Kelmore Hub, the tri-faction coordination node for the Orval Pact, dead. Nexus Lineage, blacked out mid-broadcast during a core treaty renewal. The feed had cut in the middle of the Chancellor's ceremonial sentence. On the orbital rings above Tau Salens, orbital lanes jammed with diplomatic shuttles hovering in place, their propulsion fields neutralized. Power was intact. Interfaces were green, but no ship moved, not one. In the Perrine expanse, traders in the hollowed core of asteroid Bastion 14 found their docking permissions revoked by a system that refused to acknowledge their transponders. Cargo holds remained sealed, gravity slowly destabilized. One dockmaster tried to override the safety interlocks. The console refused to unlock. A minute later, oxygen loss alarms began sounding. False. Maybe. No one knew. Everyone began to run. In the Laxori homeworld capital, Lord Magistrate Velen's private chamber began shaking at 0. 4 hates, barely perceptible to non-Laxori. For them, it was thunder. He stormed into the central command room of the Planetary Defense Council, demanding confirmation of mobilization. "Launch protocol is stalled," stammered High Controller Brannock, his segmented limbs twitching against the console. The Laxori were insectoid in form, faces shielded behind armored fronds, their nervous systems heavily reliant on synesthetic input. "We sent the mobilization code 7 minutes ago," Velen growled. "Why have the planetary fleets not responded?" "The message was acknowledged," Brannock muttered. But the targeting interface returned null authorization. Our satellites have reverted to safe mode. Velen turned slowly toward the viewport. Dozens of sleek black cruisers sat in low orbit, framed by the light of twin suns. None of them moved. Aboard the orbital palace of the Brelan Dominion, High Executor Yorvak K paced the inner ring of his command sanctuary. His voice thundered across the chamber. "Get me access to the civilian escape lanes. We launch from Platform 7. His aides, a collection of smaller Brelan, and 2 human administrative contractors, scrambled across the room. Screens froze. Pathways failed to generate. Evacuation systems responded with generic command errors. Jorvak turned to his adjutant. "Manual override." The man, a Terran civilian named Arlen Forrester, glanced once toward the wall and nodded. Jorvak pressed his hand against the door panel to the hangar corridor. The system asked for biometric confirmation. He gave it. The lock hissed, then stalled. A yellow glow blinked twice. "Try again," Forrester offered quietly. Jorvak's hand slammed the panel. The glow remained, twice, 3 times, then nothing. The executor roared, ramming the wall with his armored forelimb. Sparks flew. The door remained sealed. Arlen stood silently beside him, arms folded behind his back. 3 sectors away, a Valari diplomat named Isorden sprinted through the hall of his consulate, clutching a datapad and shouting orders to a flight technician. "Launch my ship now. Emergency override." The technician, a 4-eyed Yathari youth with bioluminescent skin patches, shook his head. "There's something wrong with the hangar protocols. The climate lock is frozen. The airlock systems won't cycle." "Then open it manually." "They're not responding to physical input. It's like the doors aren't there." Den arrived at the launch chamber, sweating despite the cold. The vessel stood gleaming behind the hangar viewport, fully fueled, powered, waiting. The panel before him showed nothing unusual. No errors, no faults, just inaction. He slammed his hand into the override control, again and again. The system made no sound, no resistance. Dan's hand slid down the frame, helpless. He rested his forehead against the cold metal, breath shallow, watching his ship, his freedom, through the glass. Still lit, still ready, as if mocking him. In the control chamber on Mars, Victor Rains stood before a galactic map bathed in red. "They're starting to see it," said Lieutenant Granger, eyes locked to the feed from the Council's inner core. "Containment is holding. Reaction patterns match Scenario 3C. Update the relay fields. I want all primary nodes isolated before the tertiary systems register fail state," Rains said, folding his arms behind his back. A new screen came online. Data lines from the Tolvinar Ascendancy blinking in sequence. Satellite relays refused command pings. Their weather systems drifted into false pattern loops. No cloud regulation, no orbital stabilization. An agricultural world without meteorological control. Unspoken chaos. In a civilian district of Tolvinar Prime, a school administrator stared at her skyboard as the temperature alert shifted 30 degrees without warning. She turned to the emergency broadcast line. No signal. In the street, civilians stared upward as wind gusts whipped through the city, tearing banners and clouding the air with unfiltered sand. The skies answered to no one. On the Haldur trade moon, 6 cargo ships drifted between mooring tethers, their cargo clamps frozen mid-release. One captain, a Sharon male named Kuravash, activated the emergency transmission beacon. The console showed active uplink. He waited. The response timer spun. "No acknowledgement," said his navigator. "I see that," Kuravash muttered. Another try. Still spinning. He looked at the screen as if it might explain itself. "They're supposed to answer. We pay for instant response." His engineer, human-born Julian North, spoke for the first time in hours. "They're not listening," he said. Kurvash turned slowly toward him. "What?" "They're not listening." Inside the Council's Magna Chamber, the day progressed as scheduled. Representatives gathered again, unaware of the threads unraveling beyond their reach. Voices argued over jurisdictional trade. New agendas were added to the docket. A junior delegate from the Dakaran sovereignty leaned to whisper to his superior. "We've lost signal with the Tau exchange." "Routing error," the senior dismissed. A diplomat from the Krill enclave frowned at her console, tapping the side of her holopad. "My appointment with the Kelmore envoy is stuck on pending for 15 minutes. A murmur passed along the upper gallery. "There's something wrong with the maintenance drones. Sector 13's hasn't moved all cycle." Still, the floor moved forward. Votes were cast. Motions passed. The illusion held. For now. In the silence beneath Mars, no celebration followed. Victor watched the collapse like a man reading a weather report. Calm. Unmoved. One of the feeds flickered. A station's interior showed a delegate slamming a wall panel in frustration. Another image. A hangar of idle ships, perfect and gleaming, completely still. Another, power signatures blinking out in sequence. Granger turned. "Confirmation from all listening posts, they're panicking." Raines nodded once. "Exactly as expected. Stage 2 begins when they start blaming each other." 2 standard days before the vote, an unmarked diplomatic crate was transferred from a Corrine supply barge to Docking Bay, 6 of the Council's orbital hub. The manifest listed it as containing atmospheric stabilization components for the auxiliary filtration grid, a routine delivery, low priority, and approved by Jaquel administrative systems weeks in advance. Inside the crate, 13 humans lay motionless, suspended in biosuppressive gel. Monitors embedded in the interior confirmed stable vitals. No movement, no sound. At the precise second the crate reached the service level, it pulsed once with infrared light, an activation signal pre-programmed to bypass Council diagnostics. 23 minutes later, one of the storage panels inside the crate hissed open. Now, as Council delegates debated increasingly irrelevant motions above, the agents of Section 9 moved unseen below. Not ghosts, not myths, simply present. Operative Marcus Vell slid silently through a maintenance conduit beneath Quadrant 3, his breathing regulated, suit vents closed. His visor displayed a map overlay of the vent grid, updated in real time. Each movement was synced with the rotation of cleaning drones and ambient ventilation cycles. He moved exactly when the noise cover was optimal. Never a second early, never a second late. Above him, footsteps echoed down a corridor. Guard patrol, 2 Tarshek, both armed, both relaxed. Vell stopped, not from fear, from protocol. The corridor's thermal signature had already been mapped. Their body heat traced familiar lines. But just behind them, a third shape flared into view, a warm irregularity against the cold steel, an anomaly. 12 decks below the main chamber, Operative Elijah Marin stood in a blind spot between 2 elevator shafts, reviewing synchronized motion logs. His task, monitor fluctuations in energy draw from the secondary grid. A soft vibration passed through the floor, barely noticeable. A lift had been rerouted. He checked the timing, wrong by 2.3 seconds. "Adjustment," he murmured into his silent mic. "Route Delta 6 shifting." 3 levels up, Operative Soren Lath recalibrated his internal map and adjusted course. He was already moving before Marin finished speaking. Every corridor, every access vent, every power duct had been studied. They knew when guards scratched behind their neck plates. They knew which maintenance doors jammed. They knew the exact tone produced by the Krillori coolant systems that cycled every 2 minutes, just enough to mask movement between panels. They did not react. They executed. Back on Deck 5, Security Officer Jern Dalvek paused in front of a thermal diagnostic console. The Jarnian male's smooth black skin shimmered faintly under the ambient lights, ridges along his jaw tightening as he studied the readout. There it was again. A spike. Brief. Faint. Just above Corridor Junction G19, he tapped the control pad. The system ran a diagnostic sweep. Result: clear. Still, Dalvek narrowed his eyes. That's not normal. He stepped away from his post, moving down the hall, hand resting casually near his weapon. He didn't call it in. Not yet. 2 turns, a side corridor, a control hatch cracked open, barely. Dalvek leaned forward. A faint hiss. He reached for his communicator. It never connected. His body jerked once, then folded soundlessly to the floor. Operative Juno Mercer stepped from the shadows, retracting a small induction pulse unit from Dalvek's neck. No alarms, no mess, no trace. She dragged his body into a sealed maintenance duct. A drone, pre-hacked days earlier, rolled past seconds later and registered the hallway as clear. In the council chamber, the debate turned restless. "I demand to know why the Andari signal grid has been silent for 16 hours, said Prefect Doral Mexar, a tall, thick-skinned representative of the Tholari Dominion. His brow plates flushed orange, a sign of frustration. "Same issue on the Drenari loop," murmured Ambassador Kellen Vore of the Zarin League. "Traffic logs show delays, but no error signals. It's like nothing wants to admit it's broken." Across the room, 2 minor factions exchanged glances. The Harnathi envoy, known for his obsession with procedural integrity, remained silent, but his aides shifted uncomfortably. They all felt it. Something was wrong. In the command chamber beneath Mars, Victor Rains monitored 325 data streams. On one, a patrol route paused for 23 seconds due to a drone recalibration. On another, an internal comm ping looped back to its origin. And in the center of it all, a cross-sectional overlay of the Council's orbital station showed faint green arcs, human agents, mid-rotation, waiting. "Internal traffic patterns?" Rains asked. "Unchanged," said Lieutenant Harrow. "They haven't noticed the reroutes. All security logs are echoing safe state feedbacks. Visual sensor reports? Still spoofed, all blind sectors holding. Time to agent breach threshold?" Harrow checked a synchronized chart. 3 cycles, they'll hold. Elsewhere across the galaxy, panic deepened. On the agricultural moon Yarantel, planetary defense systems refused to initialize. General Auric Malvin tried to manually boot orbital weapons platforms. The consoles responded in sequence. Request denied. Logjam detected. Authorization expired. He turned to his communications chief. "Who updated these systems?" "They were optimized by external consultants last quarter." "What consultants?" The officer scrolled, confused. "They were Terran." In the Lurketh Empire, Grand Warden Foshik shouted into a crystal-encrypted comm system that refused to process outgoing signals. "Open a secure channel to our fleet in the Haran Belt." "We can't," the technician stammered. "The protocol handshake is being rejected." "By what?" "By our own satellites." A hush spread through the chamber. In the council chamber, whispers turned to arguments. "They're doing this," Mexar growled. "The humans, this is retaliation." "That's absurd," said Vore. "They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have permission," a voice muttered from the far seats. Silence. Didn't they refuse to integrate? Keep their system sovereign? It was suspicious even then. Murmurs grew. Accusations coiled in the air. All eyes looked for someone to blame. Inside the hidden levels of the summit, Operative Vel adjusted his position by exactly 1.3 meters. His breathing remained level. His suit temperature blended perfectly with the environmental baseline. Far above, a meeting room lit with diplomatic glow panels began to empty. Some representatives leaving early, others staying behind with hushed conversations. The moment was near. In the Mars Command Center, Victor Rains stared at the central feed. A line of code scrolled quietly, unseen by all but him. He folded his hands behind his back. They're starting to break. The emergency chimes rang half a beat slower than they should have. In the magna chamber of the Galactic Council, the walls pulsed with warning hues. Soft amber instead of red. Protocols triggered, but they staggered. Diplomatic banners lagged behind their activation pulses. Even the ambient shielding took an extra second to initialize. None of it was catastrophic. All of it was wrong. At the central dais, Arch-Chancellor Zovandrek stood rigid, mandibles locked, crest plates trembling with barely restrained fury. His voice, sharp as splintered crystal, echoed across a room that no longer offered him full silence. "This council will come to order," he snapped. The chamber complied, but slowly. Representatives filtered in through staggered arrival platforms, many in disarray, some arriving late, others without aids. The circular gallery filled unevenly. Holographic nameplates blinked erratically. Several remained dim. "Emergency Session Protocol Omega Rho has been invoked under executive authority," Zovandrek announced. "There has been coordinated sabotage. We will identify those responsible, and we will punish them." A few murmurs passed through the lower tiers. Most delegates didn't raise their heads. Some adjusted malfunctioning personal terminals. Others whispered, eyes darting toward the upper levels where the translation lattice was flickering intermittently. The Arch-Chancellor's talons tapped the base of his podium. "First accusation, the Korgothi Dominion," he continued, his voice low, cutting. "Long have they undermined council infrastructure under the guise of restraint. The chaos unfolding matches their doctrine of blunt force masked by silence. I ask the council to formally censure them for obstruction of stability." Primarch Vechtal didn't stand at first. Even seated, he loomed over the row of Korgothi delegates. His armor gleamed dull bone-white beneath the light, and his voice came slowly, deeply, as if carved from stone. "If we had struck, you would know it. Entire systems would burn. You know this. You were there." His eyes locked onto Zovandrek's. "No, this isn't our hand, but we warned you. We know the species you chose to leash." Zovandrek sneered. "Then you admit your alliance with the humans?" "No," Vechtal said. "We fear them." The statement rolled through the chamber like a low quake. "They observe. They adapt. And when they act, there is no warning. We have faced their retaliation once. It took a generation for our fleets to recover. Even now, we keep no manned bases within 3 jumps of Sol." He leaned forward. "Not because of treaties, because of memory." Zovandrek raised his claw dismissively. "Enough mythology. You glorify your own cowardice." Vechtal remained unmoved. "Then answer me this, Arch-Chancellor. If even we, who warred with them for blood, never dared enslave them, what made you think you could?" Silence. Zovandrek's voice cracked with indignation. "You are losers of a dead war. You hold no seat on this council except by pity and protocol. You have no right to lecture the sovereign assembly of this galaxy." "I do not lecture," Vechtal said, rising now, slowly. "I watch, just like they did." Zovandrek's expression contorted. He slammed his palm onto the surface of the podium, attempting to initiate a secure link to the emergency command relay. A thin holographic interface flickered once, then went blank. He tapped again. The panel stayed dark. He switched channels. Nothing. "Override Council Net. Alpha Prime access, Chancellor level," he barked. No response. Behind him, a protocol assistant, a slender Nihari clerk, nervously adjusted a corrupted projection node and then quietly backed away, as if trying not to be noticed. "Security access breach?" Zovandrek hissed toward the chamber's general AI input. Only white static returned. His claw twitched. He looked up. For the first time in his tenure as Arch-Chancellor, Zovandrek scanned the chamber, not for compliance, but for reassurance, for support. He found only fear. The Dekaran block sat stiffly, their eyes locked downward. The Tholari remained rigid, arms crossed. The Zarin delegation had partially vacated their seats. Others clutched data tablets like weapons, though none worked. None of them met his eyes. "Then, we hunt them!" Zovandrek shouted. "Humans! Declare them enemies of the Accord! Authorize a planetary interdiction! We exterminate the infection!" He waited for someone, anyone, to answer. The chamber was still. A single Tarshek envoy coughed nervously, then whispered something to his aide. No motion followed, no assent, no votes. Zovandrek's mandibles clicked. In the command nexus beneath Mars, Victor Rains stood with arms behind his back, watching the feed from the council chamber without a word. The transmission was clean, untraceable, routed through a dozen passive relays and redirected through sleeper nodes. Each data point flowed into place, logged, time-stamped, cross-referenced. System-wide security lockdown confirmed, Lieutenant Granger reported. No functional override accepted. Command lattice is completely severed. Council response? Rains asked. Verbal escalation, no physical mobilization. He's yelling, no one's moving. Victor gave a single nod. Back in the chamber, Zovandrek turned toward Vektal again, eyes blazing. Is this your triumph? Standing smug while chaos spreads? Vektal didn't answer right away. This isn't triumph, he finally said. It's inevitability. You opened the gate. Now you pretend to be shocked that wolves came through. I will not fall to a species of primitives. You already have, Vektal said. Zovandrek's limbs tensed. We still hold power. The Council still commands fleets. Do you? Vektal asked calmly. Then why haven't they come? The Arch-Chancellor said nothing. They're not responding because they were never yours, Vektal said. You handed them over. Years ago. Bit by bit. Code by code. In updates you didn't audit. In contracts you didn't read. In systems you no longer understand. He turned slightly, scanning the room, then back to Zovandrek. This isn't their uprising, Arch-Chancellor. It's your failure. All of this was your doing. Zovandrek lunged forward, slamming the interface again. I am not the one who will lose today. Vektal lowered his gaze briefly, then met him one last time. No, Chancellor, he said flatly. You won't lose. You already have. He turned to sit, then paused. Just wait. And with that, he folded his arms, eyes still forward, unmoving. Zovandrek didn't speak again for 12 seconds. His claw hovered over the inert terminal. His eyes flicked across the silent chamber. Nothing moved. Even the air felt still. In the cold silence beneath Mars, Victor Rains gave new orders. Phase 3, he said. Final preparations. Monitor all delegation biometrics. Await breach signal. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't blink. The room moved as one. They had crossed the threshold. Now, only the break remained. The first medical station to fail was Ariat Prime. Orbiting a lush, terraformed world in the Pelagus Strip, its systems collapsed mid-cycle during a gene therapy recalibration. Cryogenic beds thawed without orders. Surgical drones froze mid-operation. The patient monitors blinked static, then went black. In the neonatal ward, the atmospheric regulators stalled, then overcompensated. 17 lives were lost in the first 30 seconds. Across the channel, the orbital city of Calvaros 4 initiated emergency lockdown. Containment shutters sealed with no clearance. Internal transit froze. Automed dispensers deployed antidotes for toxins that weren't present. 4,000 residents were confined inside sterilized zones with no explanation. No distress signal escaped. In the Tolvinar Ascendancy, entire communications sectors went dark, not with static, but silence. Messages sent returned as echoes, looping empty confirmations. Diplomatic corps tried alternate frequency bands, only to find each one already occupied by blank response signatures. Emergency channels reported active, none actually transmitted. On Delthar Station, a minor diplomatic outpost of the Visari Coalition, Trade Envoy Karn Rel recited the full Treaty of Mutual Accord into a dead channel, pleading for recognition. His species, a crustacean-like race called the Gareth, had no standing fleets, no planetary shields, just agriculture and desperation. To the humans of Sol, he said, bowing before the inert feed, we offer alliance, total alignment, resources, compliance. We see your strength. We beg for inclusion. No reply came, not even rejection. In the central vaults of the Interstellar Finance Exchange on Von 6, security AI failed without warning. Transaction ledgers unraveled in real time. Credit chains looped, then duplicated, then vanished. Account balances dissolved. Smart contracts reverted to draft status, then corrupted. Data recovery processes initiated and never completed. The panic was immediate. On prosperous worlds like Luscar Prime and Herathan's Reach, digital currency exchanges froze. Markets blinked offline. Negotiators screamed into frozen holopanels. Physical trade convoys launched without routes, searching for manual partners. Barter systems reappeared. Gold was weighed. Crops were exchanged hand to hand. Civilizations that had once engineered stars were trading potatoes. On the periphery, even the forgotten colonies felt it. Yari Station, population 1,422, 3 light-years beyond regulated territory, saw its local weather modulator fail and its water recycling initiate a hard shutdown. The emergency beacon was dead. An old ham radio, salvaged centuries ago from a pre-warp wreck, was tuned manually by the station head. Nothing, not even background static. They've turned it all off. On Mars, Victor Rains stood before a full wall of data feeds. The chamber lights were low. Each screen pulsed red or amber. No greens remained. "Status of agent placements," he asked. Lieutenant Harrow stood at the secondary console. All 13 operatives in position. Motion cycles aligned. External feeds remained spoofed. They're invisible. Final breach trigger? Awaiting signal. The procedural delay you requested has propagated. Internal maintenance flagged 2 drone hitches and rerouted protocols. That opened corridor G8 for 4.2 minutes. Rains nodded. That's the breach window. Mark it. He stepped forward and activated the last secure channel. A silent ping passed through relay nodes across 5 systems, touching only the command implants of the Section 9 infiltrators. In the Magna chamber, the next session began. The agenda display flickered. Several names remained blank. Attendance was lower than protocol allowed. The translation grid stuttered. Still, the chamber proceeded. None of the representatives noticed the shift in internal gravity calibration. A minor fluctuation, blamed on orbital drift. No one knew that Section 9 had triggered it deliberately to mask the micro footsteps of repositioning agents. A Krill delegate leaned over to his counterpart. "Have you heard from Salran Outpost?" "No," came the reply. "Nor from Nex or Toriel Prime. We are alone." In orbit above, the automated courier beacon from the Darun Compact completed its transmission burst. Its content: a formal proposal of strategic partnership with Earth. Full support. Full surrender. One message, tagged priority. Terra received it, logged it, did not answer. Below the chamber, Operative Marcus Vell moved silently beneath the central rotunda. His biometric tracker aligned with the footpath of the Tholari prefect above him. Timing. Perfect. On another tier, Operative Lath stood motionless inside a dormant coolant vent. His weapon was primed, triggerless, awaiting only the unspoken signal. In the control room beneath Mars, Victor turned toward Granger. "All Council frequencies?" "Jammed, compressed, redirected through mirrored arrays." Rains nodded once. "Begin upload of the final sequence. Target the chamber AI, visual only." "Confirmed." He watched the stream begin to build, layer by layer. Not code, not noise, something else. A message, a consequence. Rains folded his arms. Let them start the vote. The chamber lights flickered once, then went out. For a full 3 seconds, the Magna chamber of the Galactic Council was plunged into absolute darkness. Not the muted black of emergency mode, no backup systems, no passive overlays, no low-light compensation, just void, a complete systemic blackout. The representatives froze. In the silence, chairs creaked. Someone whispered something sharp and brief in a dialect too fast to translate. An ambassador's voice cracked a nervous question, unanswered. One delegate from the Krill Enclave rose halfway from his seat, then hesitated. There was nowhere to go. Above them, The central projection halo, the heart of the chamber's command interface, flared suddenly to life, not with council sigils or star charts, but with a single image, a face, human, Victor Reigns. His posture was calm, centered within a war-gray control room. Behind him, blank-faced operators moved with quiet precision. No insignia, no colors, only function. His voice was steady, cold. "You decided the fate of a people with a vote," he said. "Now it's our turn." He raised one hand, paused, then snapped his fingers. The sound echoed in the chamber like a detonated vacuum seal. And then, nothing. For a moment that stretched too long, no change occurred. The delegates shifted, confusion mixed with creeping dread. Someone leaned to ask if this was some theatrical warning. Someone else began to rise. And then the room changed. 74 figures appeared, not stepped, revealed. One by one, the camouflaged agents of Section 9 deactivated their optical shrouds with silent synchronization. They stood directly behind their targets, each one precisely aligned with a representative who had voted to reclassify Earth. No warning, no room to react. The soft, mechanical clicks of weapons being armed echoed together. Each agent held a short-barreled plasma induction pistol, muzzle positioned less than a handspan from the base of a delegate's skull. The design was silent, clean, meant to neutralize without mess. The statement wasn't in the weapon, it was in the position. A ripple of motionless terror passed through the chamber. The rows of seats transformed from symbols of power into cages. The delegates didn't speak. They barely breathed. Their stillness wasn't respect, it was realization. That everything they thought they controlled had already shifted beneath them. That sovereignty was now a ghost, and the ghosts were human. Every representative who had voted for Earth's enslavement now had a human behind them. And the others, unharmed. Vectal did not flinch. The Korgothi Primarch sat motionless in his seat, arms crossed over his chest, bone armor gleaming softly in the projection light. He made no move to flee, no gesture to protect. His second, Gormek, tensed beside him. But Vectal simply narrowed his gaze at the image of Reigns. No agent stood behind him, none needed. Across the chamber, Eos Mar of the Corrine delegation let his datapad fall from his lap without picking it up. He stared straight ahead, expression unreadable, as the weapon passed inches behind his head to point elsewhere, toward his superior. The Corrine aide at his side tilted his head slowly, realization dawning that the weapons weren't random. They were targeted, chosen. One delegate, a Namari female named Veska, leapt from her seat, tried to sprint toward the upper hallway. She made it 3 steps. A shape shifted in front of the exit arch. A man, human, already there. He said nothing. He didn't move. She stopped. Her breathing grew sharp. She backed away. Slowly. All around the chamber, others realized the same. Every exit was sealed. Not by bulkheads, but by presence. The agents stood silently at choke points, corridors, archways, seated stairways, each one without a word, each one already in place. Back in the center of the chamber, Sovandrek had not spoken. His mandibles twitched once, then again. He turned his head slightly, as if to locate which of the shadows behind him had solidified. He never finished the motion. Victor Reigns' image remained fixed on the central display, gaze level, voice quiet. No shots fired, no alarms triggered, no commands given, just presence. That's all it takes. A Drillari diplomat whimpered aloud, clutching a symbol of office. His hands shook. No agent pointed a weapon at him, yet he collapsed back into his chair, as if the air had changed. No one argued. Vectal, from his seat, slowly uncrossed his arms, then recrossed them the other way. A single ceremonial gesture among Korgothi warriors, a symbol of acknowledgement. The humans had done what even his people had never dared. A lesson had arrived, and it had a human face. The silence stretched. 100 thoughts passed through every alien present, but none were said aloud. Not one dared whisper. Because deep in that silence, something had shifted. permanently. They had ruled by vote. Now they were ruled by precision. By ghosts they couldn't see coming. And this time they had come to be seen, too. For a breathless moment, no one moved. The agents of Section 9 held their positions with surgical stillness. Plasma pistols remained trained, silent, unwavering, at the base of each delegate's skull. No shots fired, no words spoken. And then, one by one, the powerful began to fall to their knees. It wasn't choreographed, it wasn't dramatic, it was raw. Councillor Jaren Vak of the Tholari Dominion collapsed first. His broad frame, wrapped in ceremonial silk, crumpled without resistance. Behind him, the human agent remained motionless. Then another, Chancellor Vorik of the Drelari Pact, tried to kneel with control, but his legs gave out. He dropped, eyes wide with disbelief. Then 3 more, then 7. "Please, we didn't know. We were following block orders. It was politics, nothing personal." The agent said nothing. Councillor Mal Suthan of the Vorshalan Confederacy, his exosuit pulsing dimly, raised a trembling hand toward the nearest human. "We rescind. We reverse the vote. Please, we acknowledge your sovereignty." His voice broke. No response. A krill diplomat curled at the base of his seat, trembling. His aide shielded his head with both hands. Above them, Arch-Chancellor Zovandrek trembled. His spine ridges flattened. Jacques held body language for unshielded fear. His mouth opened, then closed. He turned. His aides were gone. He was alone. He reached for his wrist console. It blinked red. Again. Nothing. "Guards!" he rasped, voice fraying. "Respond to breach protocol." 6 guards emerged from side alcoves, trained, armed, hesitating, and dead before the first could raise a weapon. 6 flashes, no sound. The induction rounds collapsed their nervous systems instantly. No alarms, no warnings, no residue, silence. 2 Korgathi warriors stood. Gormek stepped forward on reflex. A single arm stopped him. "Don't move," Vekatal said quietly. "They don't miss, and we are not the target." Gormek froze. Around them, delegates crumpled. Some knelt, others slumped. A few slid to the floor as if trying to vanish. Zovandrek did not kneel, but he fell. His claws slipped from the podium. His legs buckled, not from injury, but humiliation. No orders answered, no systems obeyed. His crest sagged. He opened a private channel. It connected. "Human Commander," he began, trying to steady his voice. "We acknowledge your strategic superiority. The resolution against your species is hereby considered null. Sovereignty will be restored. A permanent seat on the High Council will be offered to Terran leadership. Reparations can be discussed. The message reached Mars. In the command center beneath the red planet, Victor Rains stood before the display. No reaction. Operators continued logging signals. Silent. Precise. Granger turned. "Direct line. Priority clearance. Routed through fallback diplomatic relays. It's clean." Rains blinked once. "You had your vote. Now, you listen. Carefully." He tapped the console. The line went dead. The last image Zovandrek saw. Victor's eyes. Not triumphant, just done. In the chamber, silence cracked. Voices erupted, shouts, accusations, blame. "You did this. No, your block. We voted together." A delegate stumbled. Another crawled beneath a bench. Then the lights dimmed again. Not failure. Reset. Order restored. The human agents didn't move, didn't speak. Their weapons remained lowered, not as threat, as memory. On Mars, the command room returned to slate gray. Monitors cycled through diagnostics. Operators resumed their work. No celebration, just confirmation. Rains turned from the screen, walking toward the central table. Across the display, one line appeared. Operation Janus, phase complete. The galaxy had changed, and they were already past the point of return. "Hey there, space human," I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Also, remember to check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's worth a look. Oh, and one last thing. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.